Your grandmother never owned a microwave, never watched a cooking tutorial, and never once Googled how to fix a lumpy sauce. Yet somehow, every meal came out right. Every problem had a solution that cost nothing and took seconds. Number 17 on this list uses something you probably throw in the bin every single week. And number 6 is so effective that a food scientist at Sheffield University called it, and I quote, "better chemistry than most commercial products on the shelf." These 25 tricks were passed down at kitchen tables, scribbled on the backs of envelopes, and whispered between neighbors over garden fences. Then we forgot them all. Let us fix that. Subscribe, and let us count them down. Number 25. A wooden spoon across the pot stops it boiling over. Every grandmother in Britain knew this one, and nobody could fully explain why it worked. When a pan of pasta or potatoes started climbing toward the rim, threatening to send starchy water all over the hob, she would lay a wooden spoon across the top of the pot. The bubbles would reach the spoon, collapse, and retreat. The wood disrupts the surface tension of the foam. Starchy water creates a film of bubbles that trap steam, building higher and higher until the pot overflows. A wooden spoon pops those bubbles on contact, because wood does not conduct heat the way metal does, so the foam cannot sustain itself against the cooler surface. Your grandmother never said any of that. She just said, "Put the spoon on the pot and stop hovering." It cost nothing. It worked every time, and it saved her from scrubbing the hob after every meal. Now we stand there watching pans like hawks, or turning the heat down so low the water barely moves. Meanwhile, one wooden spoon would have sorted the whole thing. Number 24. Salt on a fresh oven spill. The second something dripped onto the oven floor, whether fruit from a pie or cheese from a lasagna, your grandmother reached for the salt box. She would pour a thick layer of table salt directly onto the spill while the oven was still hot. The salt absorbed the liquid, prevented smoke, and stopped the mess from baking into a black carbon crust. After the oven cooled, the whole thing lifted off in one piece with a damp cloth. No scrubbing, no chemicals, no spending £3 on a tin of oven cleaner that makes the kitchen smell like a swimming pool. A bag of Saxa cost a few pence and did the job faster than anything in the cleaning aisle. The trick worked because salt draws moisture through osmosis and creates a barrier between the spill and the hot enamel. Your grandmother did not know the word osmosis. She knew the word common sense. Number 23. Bread to pick up broken glass. When a glass shattered on the kitchen floor, your grandmother did not just sweep. She knew the broom missed the tiny splinters, the invisible shards that could find bare feet 3 days later. After sweeping the big pieces, she would press a thick slice of bread firmly across the floor. The soft crumb picked up every microscopic fragment that bristles could not catch. One pass with a damp slice and the floor was safe. A heel of bread that was going stale anyway became the most effective safety tool in the kitchen. She would fold the bread over the glass and put the whole thing straight in the bin. No plasters were needed, no trips to casualty. Modern advice says use damp kitchen roll, but bread is thicker, softer, and molds around uneven tiles far better than any paper towel. Before Windoline and Mr. Muscle existed, every grandmother in Britain cleaned kitchen windows the same way. A splash of malt vinegar in warm water, and sheets of yesterday's Daily Mirror. The acetic acid in vinegar cut through grease and cooking film. The newspaper, made of dense wood pulp fiber, polished without leaving lint behind. The result was glass so clear you would walk into it. A bottle of Sarsons cost a few pence. The newspaper was already paid for, and the whole kitchen could be done in 15 minutes. When spray cleaners arrived in the 1970s, they cost 10 times as much and left streaks that needed a second pass with a dry cloth. Your grandmother had zero waste cleaning figured out half a century before anyone invented the phrase. Number 21. A potato to rescue over-salted soup. Every cook makes this mistake eventually. The salt hand slips, and the soup tastes like seawater. Your grandmother did not panic. She peeled a raw potato, cut it into thick slices, and dropped them into the simmering pot for 10 to 15 minutes. The potato absorbed excess sodium through osmosis, drawing salt out of the liquid and into the starch. She would fish the slices out and discard them. The soup tasted balanced again. Not diluted, not ruined. Saved. This trick appeared in Women's Institute notebooks across the country, penciled into margins and passed around at meetings. When you could not throw away a whole pot and start over, when the shops were shut on Sundays, you needed a solution that cost a penny and worked in minutes. The potato method delivered every single time. Number 20. Damp tea towel to revive stale bread. Day-old rolls from the bakery went hard overnight, but your grandmother never binned them. She would wet a clean tea towel, wring it until just damp, wrap the rolls inside, and warm them in a low oven, around 150 degrees, for 5 minutes. The steam from the cloth rehydrated the crust, making the bread soft and tender again, almost as if it had just come from the oven. The kitchen would smell of fresh bread. The rolls would taste fresh. And nothing was wasted. A loaf cost 9p in the 1950s, and throwing away food was unthinkable. This 5-minute trick turned yesterday's leftovers into something the whole family would eat without complaint. Number 19. Lemon juice to stop fruit going brown. The second you sliced an apple or a banana for the children's lunchbox, oxidation turned it into something that looked 3 days old by noon. Your grandmother squeezed half a lemon over the cut fruit, and the browning stopped dead. The lemon worked. Citric acid lowers the pH on the fruit's surface, deactivating the enzyme polyphenol oxidase that causes browning. She did not know the enzyme's name. She knew the lemon worked. A single lemon cost a couple of pence and kept fruit salad looking fresh for hours at church fetes, school events, and family gatherings. We buy those overpriced anti-browning sprays now. They contain citric acid, the same thing that was already sitting in her fruit bowl. Number 18. Bicarbonate of soda for scrubbing pans. When a saucepan got burnt so badly that soaking overnight did nothing, your grandmother reached for the bicarbonate. She would sprinkle a generous layer across the burnt bottom, add enough water to cover, and bring it to a gentle boil for 5 minutes. The alkaline solution loosened the carbonized food from the metal. After cooling, the residue lifted away with a wooden spoon. No steel wool needed, and no scratches on the pan. A box of bicarbonate cost a few pence and lasted months in the cupboard. This trick saved cast iron, enamel, and stainless steel pans that looked beyond rescue. Food scientists confirm that sodium bicarbonate breaks down organic compounds at boiling temperatures far more effectively than most commercial cleaning pastes. Your grandmother already knew that. She just called it giving the pan a good boil. Number 17. Used tea bags for deodorizing the fridge. Here is something most people throw away twice a day without thinking. Your grandmother saved her used PG Tips bags, let them dry on the draining board, and placed 2 or 3 inside the fridge on a saucer. The dried tea leaves absorbed odors the same way activated charcoal does, trapping volatile molecules inside their porous structure. Fish smell, onion smell, that mysterious smell that appears when you have forgotten what is lurking at the back of the middle shelf. Gone within 24 hours. She would swap the bags once a week. It cost her nothing. Meanwhile, we buy those plastic fridge freshener pods for £2.50 and wonder why the kitchen still smells of last Tuesday's haddock. Number 16. Flour on a grease fire. This was survival knowledge, not a cooking tip. If fat caught fire in the chip pan, your grandmother knew 3 things. Never throw water on it, grab a damp tea towel and smother the flames, and if a small grease flare started on the hob, a handful of plain flour thrown over the flame would suffocate it instantly by cutting off the oxygen. She kept the flour bag within arm's reach when deep frying for exactly this reason. By the 1970s, fire safety campaigns recommended proper fire blankets, which was sensible, but for decades before those arrived, flour and damp towels were the front-line defense in every terraced kitchen in Britain. Number 15. Stale bread for soaking up fat from stews. When a stew or casserole turned out too greasy, your grandmother did not skim with a spoon, chasing oil around the surface like a fool's errand. She laid a slice of white bread flat across the top of the pot for 30 seconds. The bread absorbed the surface fat like a sponge. She would lift it out, discard it, and repeat if needed. 2 slices could remove most of the excess grease from a full pot. No special fat separators. No waiting for the stew to cool so the fat would solidify on top. The bread method was instant, and it used something that was already in the kitchen. Stale bread was currency in your grandmother's house. It cleaned glass. It picked up spillages. It rescued stews. Nothing got thrown away while it still had a purpose. Number 14. A cup of tea to water houseplants. Leftover cold tea. Not the dregs with milk and sugar, but the last half cup of black tea that went cold while she was hanging the washing. Your grandmother poured it into the pot plants on the kitchen windowsill. Tea contains tannic acid, which slightly lowers soil pH, benefiting acid-loving plants like ferns and African violets. The nitrogen in tea leaves also acts as a mild fertilizer. Her kitchen plants thrived while everyone else's wilted. She would tell the neighbors it was good soil. It was good tea. Number 13. Rice in the salt cellar. In a damp British kitchen, salt clumped into a solid block inside the shaker within days. Your grandmother dropped a few grains of uncooked rice into the salt cellar, and the problem vanished. The rice absorbed ambient moisture, keeping the salt dry and free-flowing all winter long. A trick so simple it feels like cheating, yet it works on pure physics. Rice is hygroscopic. It pulls water vapor from the surrounding air. The same principle is behind those little silica gel packets in shoe boxes, except rice is free and already in the cupboard. Some families kept rice in the pepper pot too. Decades of dry, pourable seasoning for the cost of absolutely nothing. Number 12. Eggshells to sharpen the blades of a coffee grinder or to clean a vase. Dried eggshells, crushed to a coarse powder, can clean the inside of a narrow-necked vase or water bottle that no brush can reach. Many grandmothers would drop the crushed shells inside with warm, soapy water, then swirl vigorously. The abrasive fragments scoured the glass walls clean. If you have a manual coffee grinder, running dried eggshells through the mechanism cleans old coffee oil residue and hones the burrs. Eggshells are almost pure calcium carbonate, hard enough to scrub but soft enough not to scratch glass. They were saved beside the cooker in a small dish, dried out before crushing. Nothing exotic, nothing expensive, just the leftovers from breakfast doing a second job before lunch. Number 11. Butter wrapper to grease a baking tin. Before non-stick spray existed, your grandmother never wasted the waxed paper from a block of butter. She would fold it neatly and keep it in the fridge. When it came time to grease a cake tin, she would pull out that wrapper and rub the residual butter across the inside of the tin in smooth strokes. Enough fat clung to the paper to create a perfect non-stick coating. No waste, No fumbling with a greasy knife. No buying a separate product for a job that the packaging itself already handled. That butter wrapper greased the tin, the pudding basin, and occasionally the inside of a sandwich toaster. It was the original zero-waste kitchen hack, invented by women who would have laughed at the idea of paying extra for convenience. Number 10. Cold water to set jam. When making strawberry jam, your grandmother tested the set by dropping a teaspoon of hot jam onto a cold saucer she had kept in the freezer. After 1 minute, she pushed the spot with her fingertip. If the surface wrinkled, the jam had reached setting point. If it ran, she boiled it longer. This cold saucer test was more reliable than any sugar thermometer, and it required zero equipment beyond a saucer and a freezer shelf. Generations of women made perfect jam using nothing but instinct. And this one trick. The Women's Institute taught it at every summer meeting. The wrinkle test worked because pectin gels at specific sugar concentrations, and the cold plate simulated what would happen inside the jar once it cooled. Simple. Foolproof. Forgotten. Number 9. A bay leaf in the flour bin keeps weevils out. Weevils in flour were a genuine hazard in post-war pantries. Your grandmother kept a dried bay leaf inside every bag and tin of flour, rice, and dried pasta. The volatile oils in bay laurel, specifically eucalyptal and cineal, repel grain weevils and pantry moths. The insects cannot tolerate the scent. 1 leaf lasted months, and a small bunch from the garden cost nothing at all. She never had an infestation. Her neighbor who laughed at the bay leaves threw away 3 bags of self-raising in 1 summer. Supermarkets now sell plastic moth traps for £4 each. A bay leaf from the garden hedge does the same job, and it smells better doing it. When a favorite plate developed a hairline crack, your grandmother would submerge it in a saucepan of milk and simmer gently for 45 minutes. The proteins in the milk, mainly casein, seeped into the crack and coagulated with heat, bonding to the ceramic and sealing the fracture. The plate came out whole, the crack barely visible. This trick could not fix a plate snapped in 2, but for hairline cracks that threatened to spread, it extended the life of good china by years. In a time when a matched dinner service represented a significant household investment, throwing away a cracked plate was not an option. Milk mended what glue could not. Number 7. Mustard powder paste to remove smells from hands. After chopping onions, garlic, or fish, your grandmother mixed a pinch of Coleman's mustard powder with water into a thin paste and rubbed it over her hands. The smell vanished. Mustard's natural enzymes neutralize sulfur compounds, which are responsible for the lingering odor from alliums and seafood. A tin of Coleman's lasted years in the cupboard and served triple duty as a condiment, a cleaning agent, and as a plaster ingredient for chest colds. We buy stainless steel soap bars now for £5, and they do the same job through a different chemical mechanism. Your grandmother's version cost a fraction of a penny, and came with the added benefit of being useful on a ham sandwich 20 minutes later. Your grandmother may not have owned a microwave in 1955, but by the 1980s, when every kitchen had one, she had already worked out the fix before the manual arrived. A bowl of water with 2 tablespoons of white vinegar, microwaved on high for 5 minutes, produces acidic steam that loosens stubborn grime. The acidic steam coats every interior surface, loosening baked-on food spatters so they wipe away with a single pass of a cloth. No scrubbing, no chemicals, no elbow grease. Food scientists at Sheffield confirmed that acetic acid vapor at temperatures above 70 degrees Celsius breaks down proteins and fats far more efficiently than most commercial kitchen sprays. Your grandmother figured this out the first week she owned the machine. The rest of us are still chipping at dried bolognese with a fingernail. Number 5. Newspaper to ripen tomatoes. When tomatoes came in from the garden still green and hard in September, your grandmother wrapped each one individually in a sheet of newspaper and placed them in a single layer inside a drawer or a cardboard box. The paper trapped ethylene gas, the natural ripening hormone that tomatoes produce, concentrating it around the fruit and speeding up the process. Within a week, those rock-hard green tomatoes turned red and sweet, without ever seeing sunshine. The newspaper also absorbed excess moisture, preventing mold from forming before the tomato ripened. This method worked for pears and avocados too, long before anyone imported year-round produce from halfway across the planet. Number 4. Bread crust to grate the last bit of cheese. When a block of cheddar got too small to hold safely against the grater, your grandmother pressed a bread crust against the back of the cheese stub and used it as a handle. The rough texture of the crust gripped the cheese, her fingers stayed away from the blade, and every last gram of cheddar made it onto the shepherd's pie without a trip to casualty. When she was done, the bread crust, now warm and fragrant with cheese, went straight on top of the dish or into her mouth. No waste, no grated knuckles, no tiny cheese stub abandoned in the fridge to go hard. Resourcefulness at its finest. Number 3. Boiling water down the sink once a week. Every Friday evening, your grandmother poured a full kettle of boiling water slowly down the kitchen drain. The heat melted accumulated grease, dissolved soap residue, and flushed food particles that were building toward a blockage. It was a 2-minute habit that prevented the plumbers a visit. She followed it with a handful of soda crystals once a month for good measure. A box of soda crystals cost a few pence. A plumber cost several pounds even in the 1960s. Prevention, she understood, was always cheaper than the cure. Today we spend a fortune on chemical drain unblockers, pouring caustic liquids into pipes that would never have clogged if we had just boiled the kettle on Fridays like she did. Number 2. A raw onion to clean the barbecue grill. When the grill grate was still hot after cooking, your grandmother would spear half a raw onion on a long fork and rub it across the bars. The natural acids in the onion dissolved charred residue. The moisture created steam that loosened stubborn bits. The onion's layers acted as a natural scrubbing pad, which could be peeled back to reveal a fresh surface. By the time she was finished, the grill was clean and lightly seasoned for next time. No wire brushes shedding dangerous metal bristles into the food. No expensive grill cleaning sprays. Just half an onion and 30 seconds of effort. The trick worked on oven racks and cast iron griddles too. Number 1. Washing up liquid in the pot before cooking porridge. This is the one that sounds mad until you try it. Before making porridge, your grandmother would smear a thin film of washing up liquid around the inside rim and upper walls of the saucepan, above the waterline where the oats would never reach. As the porridge bubbled and climbed, it hit that slippery barrier and slid back down instead of crusting onto the metal. When breakfast was done, the pot rinsed clean in seconds. No soaking, no scraping, no chiseling dried oats off stainless steel with a wooden spoon for 20 minutes. The soap never touched the food. It only coated the area above the cooking line, acting as a non-stick barrier for the residue that always baked on during simmering. She used this trick for milk pans too, smearing the rim before heating milk to prevent the skin from welding itself to the metal. It was the cleverest trick in this entire list, and it is the one most people have never heard of. Try one of these this week. Just one. The wooden spoon on the pot, the salt on the oven spill, the tea bags in the fridge. Then come back and tell me your grandmother was wrong. I tested every single one of these, and my kitchen runs better than it has in years. Share which trick you are going to try first in the comments.